our guest, Mr. Kant, is here. May I request the AV team to please play the IMA anthem?
It's a life, we live it this way. Together we play, we are IMA. From the beginning till the end of this day, we move and we sway, together we stay. We'll take your hand and help you through the mistakes. Whatever it takes, we'll find a brand new place. We'll join our hand in hands and then we'll fly till the end of the time, till our worries will die. We'll do it our way, the IMA way. IMA. It's a dream to be at our best. We fight on our own with no room for rest. It's a dream to be at our best. We fight on our own with no room for rest. And it's a legacy that we want to leave. Make them all believe there will be no great leave. And all the world will follow us on our tracks, turning white from the black, just like raising the flag. We'll do it our way, the IMA way.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. May I now request Mr. Naveen Khandelwal, Member Executive Council, IMA, to please carry the proceedings forward. Mr. Naveen Khandelwal.
Thank you, Mr. Sinha. I could not find a better way just to say, greet the IMA family, मैं भी बढ़िया, तू भी बढ़िया, ऐसा. Because I can find that in spite of the fact that अनिश्चितता ही निश्चित है इस दुनिया में, but we are all here happy to be in IMA, and IMA is happy to have you here, right? Especially members from the Ujjain chapter, IMA Ujjain chapter, and EO, and Indore Roundtable 242, and Mr. Satish Parik, MD Ashok Wilcon Limited from Nashik. रिश्ते में हम तुम्हारे पॉलिसी मेकर लगते हैं. नाम है अमिताभ कांत. A person who is trying to create a bagban in business by bringing a thought of ease of doing business. A person who is trying to make each Indian write his own naseeb by not saying that kaun banega crorepati, but by saying that hum sab banenge crorepati, by proving that Chini kam is not a foreign concept, but make in India concept. A person who thinks that if you want to become a Muqaddar ka Sikandar, you have to be owns God's own country. Friends, let's bring down this diwar and between the policy maker and the people who drive this GDP of the country by breaking this zanjeer and asking questions to him, but not before he comes on the stage and speaks. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Amitabh Kant on the stage, please. I request our guest and IMA President, Mr. Santosh Michal, to lighten the lamp, please.
Good evening, everyone. In the brilliant word of Winston Churchill, Quote, "It is the continuous effort, not strength or intelligence, that is the key to unlocking our potential." Unquote. Dear ladies and gentlemen, I, on behalf of Indore Management Association, welcome our eminent guest, Mr. Amitabh Kant, a policymaker, an author, and most of all, a branding maestro credited as the key driver of Make in India, Startup India, Incredible India, and God's Own Country campaigns. Mr. Kant is also a strong proponent of the circular economy model in contrast to the make, use, dispose model of the linear economy. Sir, your efforts towards inculcating a culture of use, reuse of resources, and regenerating, recovering products and material at the end of their life cycle is commendable. We too believe this is the way forward to meet the demand of the country's rising population and ensuring a consistent high growth rate. And the efforts are already visible. We have already surpassed France to be the world's 6th largest economy. Sir, it is an honor to have you. It is an honor to have your gracious presence at Rendezvous, an exclusive CEO meet. Our aim is to create and nurture learning culture and bring out enterprising spirit at all levels, so as to effectively pursue challenges in today's chaotic, complex, rapidly changing global environment. To achieve the same, it is essential to instill the spirit of innovation in the mind of each person through a conscious process of self-discovery, experiential learning, and self-determination. In our past Rendezvous, we had the privilege to listen Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, Dr. JJ Irani, Mr. Rajiv Bajaj, Mr. Harish Bijur, Mr. D. Shiv Kumar, Mr. Prahlad Kakkad, Mr. Suhail Seth, Mr. N.K. Singh, Nobel laureate Mr. Kailash Satyarthi, Mr. Harsha Bhogle, Mrs. Vinita Bali, Mr. Sunil Alag, Mr. Rakesh Biani, Mr. Montek Singh Ahluwalia, and Mr. Raman Roy in the series. It is indeed our pleasure and privilege to you have, sir. Once again, on behalf of Indore Management Association and entire management fraternity, I extend a very warm welcome to you and all esteemed guests present here. Thank you very much.
Can I have the AV of our guest, please?
Mr. Amitabh Kant is presently posted as CEO, Niti Aayog, National Institution for Transforming India. He was till recently Secretary, Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion, DIPP. Amitabh Kant is a member of the Indian Administrative Service, IAS Kerala Cadre, 1980 batch. He is the author of Branding India, an Incredible Story, and has been a key driver of Make in India, Startup India, Incredible India and God's Own Country campaigns, which positioned and branded India and Kerala state as leading tourism destinations. These campaigns have won several international awards and embraced a host of activities: infrastructure development, product enhancement, private-public partnership, and positioning and branding. Amitabh Kant has worked as Chairman and CEO, Delhi Mumbai Industrial Corporation, CMD ITDC. Joint Secretary, Ministry of Tourism, Government of India. Secretary, Tourism, Government of Kerala. Managing Director, Kerala State Industrial Development Corporation. District Collector, Kozhikode. And Managing Director, Matsya Fed. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Amitabh Kant with a big round of applause.
May I request Mr. Anil Bhandari, Member IMA, to present a floral welcome to our speaker, please. Thank you, sir. Sir, all yours.
Mr. Santosh, Mr. Bhandari, Mr. Naveen Khandelwal, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really delighted to be here in this wonderful city of Indore, and I'm particularly fascinated to be present here at the Indore Management Association meet. I'm truly impressed by its, I've been to many management associations, but I've never seen a management association which does its marketing and branding so well. You know, I've never seen, I've been to different management associations, but I've never seen so much of energy which I see here. And I've never seen, you know, a brochure so well done. You know, your brochure is so beautifully executed. And I've been to many management associations, but I couldn't see the audio visual which was done on Amitabh Kant, but Mr. Naveen Khandelwal almost made me sound like Amitabh Bachchan of Diwar movie. You know, so it's a great pleasure to be here. I'm really delighted. And let me first congratulate all of you for living in a city which has been designated as India's cleanest city. So my compliments to all of you. You can't have a smart city without smart people. And I think the smartest people in India live in Indore. So my compliments to all of you. You know, quite often these government rankings go haywire. So I thought I'll personally go around today and see for myself whether Indore is a clean city. So I came here for this conference on mining, but I took this opportunity to move around, and I went to this IT park. I went to the Srijan Incubation Center, which is really unique, and the MD is here, and I want to compliment him as well for doing an outstanding job. And and then I went and visited, and I interacted with some students at the Delhi College, which is a unique college in the heart of Indore. So I've had the opportunity to travel around Indore and see how beautifully it is kept and how wonderfully it is managed, and a lot of greenery, a lot of flowers, wonderfully well kept. So it's a great pleasure, and I feel a great sense of pride in being in Indore, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm very delighted to be here with the IMA. So since I'm talking to the Indore Management Association, let me say that while India is growing at about 7.5% per annum, we are amongst the fastest growing countries in the world at 7.5%. But our challenge has to be to grow at even higher rates of 9 to 10% per annum, year after year, for 3 decades or more, to be able to lift a very, very young population above the poverty line. India is passing through a window of demographic transition, which rarely happens in history. 72% of our population is below the age of 32. India has very light dependency burdens. Unlike the United States of America or unlike Europe. And the most important phenomena that's happening across the world is that and this is the biggest social and economic phenomena that's happening across the world, that the population across Europe and America is getting older and will keep getting older, whereas the population in India will keep getting younger till 2042. And no country in the world has not created wealth when it has such light dependency burden. So this is a unique opportunity for India to really capitalize on. So if our ambition is to grow at high rates of 9 to 10%, and please remember always that in 1975, India and China were exactly at the same level of growth. Exactly at the same level of growth. And from 75, China started its long spurt of growth, growing at 10% per annum, year after year for decades. And if you grow at 10%, you are doubling your GDP in 7 years' time. So China doubled its GDP, then again doubled its GDP, then again doubled its GDP over a long spurt. In India, we grew at 5%, then we grew at 6%, then we grew at 7%, we grew for a short period at 9%, we fell back to 5%. And therefore, there's a vast difference between China and India. If India has to grow at high rates, and we need to grow at high rates only because we have a young population, and we need to create jobs, and we need to lift a very, very huge segment of our population above poverty line. What does India need to do? So if your ambition is to grow for 3 decades, 10% plus, what does India need to do? I think first and foremost, we must realize that we've made India a very, very complex, very complicated, and a very difficult place to do business in. Over the years, we've added a lot of rules, regulation, processes, procedures, laws, one after another, not realizing the severe implications of these vast number of laws and processes that we've undertaken. And we've made India one of the most difficult places for private sector to create wealth. And if India is to grow, then private sector must create wealth. That is the key principle of any management. And if private sector is to create wealth, then India must dismantle a lot of rules, regulation, procedures. So over the last 3.5 years, in Government of India, we've started that process. We've scrapped close to 1,300 laws. 1,300 laws. You know, the number of forms for import and export have been brought down from 12 and 11 to just 3. Starting a business has been made easier. Number of things have been done. Government of India has made things easier and simpler. We've tried to cut away human intervention, digitized everything, interlinking ministries with digitization process, and said that there should be no human intervention. So, Government of India is focused on ease of doing business. We've jumped up 42 positions on the ease of doing business of the World Bank, and our objective is that in the next 2 years, we should be in the top 50 of the World Bank ease of doing business. But India is a very large country. We are bigger than 24 countries of Europe. We are actually 24 countries plus another 30,000 kilometers as compared to Europe, and a lot of business is done in states. And therefore, it's important that we make the states easy and simple. So one of the first things we did 3 years back was to make states compete on ease of doing business. When we did this the first year, Gujarat came number 1, but this year, which is the 3rd year, Andhra and Telangana have come number 1 and number 2. Haryana is number 3, and Gujarat actually has been beaten to number 5 position. And what it shows is that a vast number of states have taken massive measures to make themselves easy and simple. They've moved forward. States have moved forward. Newer states like Telangana has moved forward, Haryana has moved forward, Andhra has moved forward. Many states have moved forward. And the good thing is that Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, and Madhya Pradesh have made a number of improvements, and they've also moved forward. So if states, which were once the Bimaru states of Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, if they start doing well on ease of doing business, then over a period of time, they will create wealth, they will move up, and they will do extremely well in wealth creation. And that is our objective, make the states compete. So starting with ease of doing business, we've made the states compete on health, we've made the states compete on water management, which is going to be a very critical challenge before us. We are making the states compete on education, learning outcomes, and we are making the states compete on district hospitals and on agriculture. All these areas. Ranking, putting it in public domain. We are telling people that good governance must be good politics. We must name and shame. And those who do not perform well must be questioned by people as to why their districts and why their states are not performing well. And those which do not perform well must be voted out. So good governance must become good politics through a process of naming and shaming. So first and foremost, I think the focus has been on ease of doing business. This is important. Make India extremely easy and simple for private sector to create wealth. India must become one of the easiest places to do business in. This would require a whole host of procedures and paperwork to be removed and eliminated. And this would require, this is work in progress, a lot of mindset will have to be changed at lower levels, and in due course this will happen if we continue this process unabated, and this will require very huge sustained momentum to do it. So our focus must be on ease of doing business and naming and shaming those who do not perform well. Second, I think we must understand that we are in a globalized world. Whether we like it or not, we are in a globalized world. And if you're a part of a globalized world, you are an integral part of the global supply chain. And therefore, the way globalization works is that something is designed somewhere, innovated somewhere, manufactured somewhere, assembled somewhere else, and India must become an integral part of the global supply chain. And therefore, we've opened up our economy in a vast range of areas, from defense to insurance to pension fund to e-commerce. And India's foreign direct investment has grown in the last 4 years by 62%, at a point of time when foreign direct investment across the world has fallen by 16%. So India has shown a huge buoyancy, huge ability to attract foreign direct investment from across the world, and some of the best countries from across the world have come and invested in India, and I think this will put pressure on us, local manufacturing, to improve in size and scale, and we'll talk about that. But it's important to understand that whatever we do, we have to do in a globalized world. India is not your market, the world is your market. And we must penetrate global markets. Number three, I think it's important to understand that there is a huge energy and dynamism in our startup movement. We are seeing a vast number of young people getting into the startup world, and they are disrupting the Indian society in a manner which we've never seen before. When I was getting into a job, my generation had no opportunity but to look at jobs in government sector. But today, young people want to do their own startup and disrupt, and I was pleasantly surprised when the director of IIT Mumbai told me that last year, out of the students passed out, 41% of IIT students actually did their own startup or joined a startup, and they are all getting into the world of disruption. And that is why it's quite amazing that a startup started some years back was able to get $21 billion from Walmart, and that you have a young Indian, Ritesh Agarwal, who's today at the age of 24 has more rooms at his command, more hotel rooms at his command than Oberoi, Taj, and ITC put together. Or you look at Ola, which is run by Bhavish, where he's taking on Uber of the world by his own innovations in the Indian sharing and connected world, and you look at a vast number of young Indian entrepreneurs, look at not merely e-commerce or sharing world, but look at health and education. Look at a startup like Baiju, where Mark Zuckerberg has invested his personal money into an education startup in India. Or look at a young girl called Pranshu Bhandari, who started with Culture Alley, then started Hello English. She realized that Mandarin and Chinese, with which she had started, was not the future, started teaching English, and in 1 year has taught 9 million Indians how to speak English. 9 million Indians, which no school, no college has been able to do it. Or look at Practo, Portia, Consio Medical, so many of these health startups which have done amazingly good work. Or look at a startup like Mitra Biotech, which relocated from Silicon Valley into Bangalore and is taking care of personalized cancer care. So you are seeing a vast number of unique startups disrupting in health, in education, in social innovation. Look at a startup like Social Corps. When the tsunami happened in Chennai, the government of Tamil Nadu was not able to reach out to people who were stranded. It was a young startup which helped them to provide food packets and reach out through its app to people who were stranded. So we are seeing a different energy and vibrancy than my generation did. And this is a generation which is out to disrupt India in a manner which India has never seen before. So this is an era of startups, and I was particularly delighted when I went to this incubation center in Indore, and I saw a tremendous energy of young startups doing vast number. One startup wanting to provide water which was fluoride, arsenic free to the citizens of India. Another wanting to provide legal assistance. A vast number of new startups, all in the incubation center. And therefore, I think it's a different world of India today, and we must recognize this. The fourth point I want to make is that people sitting in Indore must understand that there is a huge there's a vast amount of innovation taking place in India. In the last 4 to 5 years, we've seen many multinational corporations, over 800 of them, relocating their R&D center. And this is not a much talked about story, but about 850 plus multinational corporations relocating their head offices and their R&D from Europe and America, their R&D centers into Bangalore, Hyderabad, Pune, and Indore should try and attract them because many of them are doing cutting-edge work, and a lot of unique innovations have happened from India for the rest of the world. So if you look at General Electric, their low-cost ECG machine, which they innovated for $3,000 in India, they used to manufacture that for $33,000. They were able to do it for $3,000 in India, which has enabled them to do an ECG for $1 as compared to $33. So GE has been able to penetrate the world of health thanks to innovation in India. Or look at John Deere's 60 HP tractor, which they innovated in India and penetrated global markets of America, Europe with their 60 HP tractor. Or Philips' low-cost sound recording machine, or Honeywell's turbocharger, or Microsoft Bing. All of them were innovated in India through research and development in India. And a lot of innovation for the coming era of driverless cars, of electric vehicles. A lot of that innovation by Bosch, by Siemens, by ABB is all happening in India from Bangalore and Hyderabad. And you will see a lot of this innovation is happening because India has been able to combine innovation, entrepreneurship, and skills together to do frugal engineering at costs which the world has never seen before. And that is why India was able to put an orbiter around Mars at 1/10 the cost of which the NASA has done. And it's only the ability of great Indian engineering. And that is why a company like Renault, which has 118 years history and has never designed, innovated, manufactured a car outside Europe, in its 118 years history, 4 years back came to Chennai, designed, innovated the Renault Kwid, which it today exports to almost 40 countries from Chennai. Or Daimler. Daimler is a German company which came and has designed their international bus for the global market. Or look at Hyundai, which came in looking for the domestic market, but it is today exporting 52% of its production to 120 countries from here. So India has been able to do great frugal engineering, combining its entrepreneurship, innovation, skills to penetrate global markets from India. Many Indians haven't recognized this. And I think it's important that we push the limits of this enterprise and innovation further and further to enable India to become a great manufacturing nation. Because India is the center for compact car manufacturing. 49% of industrial production comes from automobile sector. 7.2% of India's GDP comes from that. We create over 40 lakh jobs from automobile and auto component sector. 30% of what we manufacture is exported. And if it wasn't for India, India is today the pharmacy of the world. And if it wasn't for India, we would not have been able to, the world would not have been able to get medicine at the right price points, and many people would have fallen below poverty line simply because they would not have been able to afford medicines at low cost. So India has the ability to do manufacturing. And if it can do it in pharmaceuticals, if it can do it in automobile, if it can do it in auto components, it can do it in a vast range of other areas as well. And I think as we head forward, there's a huge opportunity in many new and emerging areas. So I have talked about ease of doing business. I talked about globalization and how India must be an integral part of the global supply chain. I talked to you about the huge energy, vibrancy, and dynamism of our startup movement and how a lot of innovation and a lot of R&D is relocated to India. The fifth point I want to touch upon, which is very important to understand, is that urbanization will hold the key to India's future. You know, as I speak here today, every minute there are 30 Indians who are moving from rural areas to urban areas. And if you go by the latest McKinsey study, by 2050 you will have 700 million Indians getting into the process of urbanization. 700 million Indians means the challenge for India is to create 2.5 Americas. 2.5 Americas. In the next 5 decades, we'll do more urbanization than what we have done in the last 5,000 years. Whether we like it or not, we'll have to do this. And therefore, the challenge is that when America urbanized, land, gas, and water were cheaply available. And because they were cheaply available, America had the luxury of living in New Jersey, traveling to New York, guzzling gas, creating big, big limousines. It created cities like Atlanta, where 99.2% of the people travel by car. Nobody walks, nobody cycles. There's no public transportation system. So American cities have been created for cars and not for people. And American car companies bought over the railway companies and destroyed them. So American cities are models of huge pollution, and they have locked themselves into the combustion car technology. The world is moving away, and the world is moving away to energy-efficient cars, and that will be the world of electric vehicles and hydrogen cars. And the world of urbanization, the world of urbanization is completed in America. It's completed in Europe. It's nearing its completion in China. But the process of urbanization has just begun in India. And therefore, we should not repeat any of the mistakes which the Western world has already done. And it's important that as we urbanize, we recycle our water, we recycle our waste, we build our cities around public transportation. And I'm really delighted that Indore has a very good bus rapid transport system. And therefore, our cities must be designed for public transportation and not for cars. Our cities must be based on recycling of water and waste. And this is very important. That we design cities for people who live in these cities, because if 14 of the 15 worst cities are in India, according to a WHO cities, we have already created cities that are very polluting. And therefore, we are causing immense damage to the lives of citizens. And at the end of the day, it's the quality of life of the citizens of the place. So if Kanpur, Varanasi have become extremely polluted, we need to clean them up. And we need to clean them up with very hard, ruthless action. Because at the end of the day, it's about the lives of citizens. And therefore, India's process of urbanization must be extremely sustainable. It must be very innovative. If India was to follow the model of the European and the American world, we will need 4 planet Earth. 4 planet Earth. But we have only 1 planet Earth. There is only 1 planet Earth. And therefore, India needs to set up a very sustainable process of urbanization, which can then become the model for the rest of the world. And this will be the biggest challenge before India. Whether we like it or not, urbanization will take place. People will move from rural areas to urban areas simply because cities are centers of growth. Cities are centers of creativity. Cities are centers of dynamism. They create jobs and people will move for jobs. Mumbai and Calcutta have already become slums, and we need to create many good, well-planned cities of the future in India. So urbanization will be the key. The 6th point I want to make is that how we absorb technology and how we use technology to leapfrog will be critical. India is the only country in the world which has 1 billion mobile. We are the only country in the world with 1 billion biometric, and we are the only country in the world with 1 billion bank accounts. In the last 4 years, we have moved from 155th position to the #1 position in mobile data downloads. Our data download is more than China and United States put together. Our app download, we are #1 country in the world. And if you look at the process of digitization in India, in government, 99.1% of the people pay income tax online. The GST is totally digitized. We have a public finance management system. Everything is digitized. I can't release anything without going through a digital transaction. The digital payment is going full steam. We launched Bheem for digital payment on mobile, but soon we realized Google had launched its Tej, and now WhatsApp is launching its WhatsApp payment. Google Tej walked away with 76% of the market. And now WhatsApp will come in. So I envisage that in the next 3 to 4 years, all of us will switch over to mobile payments. And actually, the cost of smartphones is falling so rapidly that India will move. We have 450 million smartphones, but in 4 years' time, we'll have 1 billion smartphones, and all of us will be doing our transactions only on mobile. The QR codes will make it so simple, so easy, that debit card, credit card, ATM machines will all become technologically redundant in India, and India will be the first country to make them technologically outdated. And therefore, how we use technology to leapfrog will be very critical, and in every area of life, whether as we get into health, Ayushman Bharat, and as we get into providing insurance for health, how do we link up technologically our primary health centers with district hospitals digitally, all these would require a huge amount of technological leapfrogging to enable India to be a major engine of growth. And I think the process of digitization, the government has moved much faster than the private sector, and the private sector needs to keep pace with the government in many of these areas. So technological leapfrogging across sectors will be the key to India's future. The 7th point I want to touch upon is that there's a huge amount of structural reforms taking place in India. And I think it's important to fathom that we've had GST, the Goods and Services Tax, which has led to one tax across the country. There are teething problems. There may be issues of refund to MSMEs and to textile exporters, etc., but in the long run it will stabilize, and this will be one of the unique features of India, that a tax will make India a far more formal economy. We'll cut down costs, we'll cut down boundaries between states, and over a period of time, it will make India a far more tax-buoyant country, which will enable India to pay for nutrition, health, education, many areas. India was a very highly tax-evading country. It was a very informal country. All that will vanish, and India will become an efficient country thanks to GST. So first and foremost, India will drive the process of formalization in the years to come. The second key change we must accept is that many of you would recall Rajiv Gandhi's famous statement that only 15 paisa out of a rupee reaches the poor person. Government has implemented 500 schemes through the direct benefit transfer, where money goes straight into the bank accounts of the person. Almost 90,000 crores has been saved by the government simply because of the efficiency, because you have biometrics, you can transfer money straight into the bank account, and he can take money out based on biometric today. And that's the biggest advantage of Aadhaar, that India as an economy has become a highly efficient, productively efficient economy because there will be no leakages. Even in places like Kerala or many other places, there have been a huge number of teachers, a number of government officers who did not exist, but who are drawing their salaries. All that has vanished, simply vanished. Number of people who were drawing scholarships has vanished because everything is getting linked up to Aadhaar. We've done this to 500 schemes, and it's important for all of us to realize that Aadhaar will bring in more and more of efficiency as we go along in making India a very efficient economy. So GST, DBT, and thirdly, the insolvency code, the bankruptcy code. Since I'm talking to a number of people from the private sector, we must realize that the days, a vast number of leading businessmen in India and vast number of companies in India which were started without even the equity being put in by the investor, but money coming in from banks and banks not being repaid over a period of time. I think it's important to understand that crony capitalism in India is dead. There will be no crony capitalism. If you don't pay up the banks, you lose your companies. This has happened, and this will bring in a great amount of responsibility. This will bring in a lot of discipline, and as we go along, more and more people will become responsible for repayment back to the banks. And banks will have to become more efficient. And if you don't become efficient, you will lose market share, you will die out, private banks will take over. And the challenge today is to make our public sector bank responsible and make them far more efficient. If they don't, then private sector will take over. But crony capitalism is dead and gone in India. And the earlier we realize it, the better it is. The first time this has happened in India. So direct benefit transfer, GST, and the fourth is RERA. I've known a vast number of my colleagues, a number of my school and college friends who paid advances for houses, never got houses. And if you travel from Delhi to Noida and Greater Noida, you'll see a huge number of buildings which are lying incomplete. It's like skeletons one after another because builders have not completed after taking advance payment from middle-class people. And therefore, RERA will ensure that builders give you the houses. Now, these are tough decisions. These are tough decisions because India has been used to indiscipline. RERA, GST, formalization, insolvency code, many of us will not like. Because for centuries and for years together, we've lived with indiscipline. But this will bring in a huge amount of indiscipline. This will end crony capitalism. This will bring discipline. This will bring discipline into the builders. This will bring discipline into buyers of houses. This will bring discipline into all classes of India. But this is a tough act. Many of us will not like it. But in the long run, this will make India a very, very efficient country. And I think it's important to understand this. So there are major structural changes which we must recognize. The next point I want to touch upon, which is the 8th point which I want to touch upon, is that India is looking at creating world-class infrastructure. And without world-class infrastructure, it is not possible for India to grow at high rates. And therefore, when we talk about Sagarmala, Bharatmala, or we talk about the high-speed train from Mumbai to Ahmedabad or the Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor by 2018, and Today, it takes 14 days for goods produced in the northern part of India to reach the ports on the western coast of India. By 2018 end, you will have goods reaching within 14 hours. So from 14 days to 14 hours will be the paradigm shift. Similarly, on the eastern corridor, and with new highways, 81,000 kilometers of new highways being built, what India is doing is creating world-class infrastructure at a size and scale which India has never seen before. So you will see new ports, you will see highways, you will see corridors, all driving growth in a manner which infrastructures will drive. And I think the next big challenge will be to push for digital connectivity. In the Telecom Commission, we've just decided to push for it in a very big way. We've linked up about 150,000 panchayats. We'll be linking up another 150,000 panchayats. And as we provide digital connectivity to our rural areas, you will see digital connectivity getting more and more precedence over physical connectivity. And we'll see the push towards many of the people from rural areas using their smartphones to do businesses, to provide education, to provide health through mobile telephony, and using the connectivity to provide better education, better health through district hospitals and through classrooms. And you will see a huge amount of disruption taking place through digital connectivity. So I've talked about many things, structural reforms, world-class infrastructure, many things, which is where the government is aiming to push for. But there are many, many challenges if India has to grow at 9 to 10% over a 3-decade period. And it's important that I put it in a perspective and tell you what the challenges are. So first and foremost, ladies and gentlemen, it's important to understand that the first and the biggest challenge to my mind is that in India, only 22% of the women contribute to our GDP. The worldwide average is 48%. And India can't grow at high rates till we don't push for women empowerment and we don't push for greater role of women in our jobs. And I think there's a huge responsibility for men to ensure that there's a conscious policy of gender parity towards women. And unless and until we are not able to take care of women in nutrition, and there's a whole vicious cycle of malnutrition, and there's a whole lot of infant mortality, maternal mortality, which I'll come to, but unless consciously we don't push for greater number of jobs for women, it will not be possible for India to grow at high rates. Not possible. Nowhere in the world has this been done. And therefore, there's a huge responsibility on the men of India to ensure that women get jobs and consciously we provide jobs for them. We've just ranked the backward districts of India, which we call as aspirational district of India. And the worst performing district of India has been Mewat district of Haryana. Mewat district of Haryana has been ranked the worst because it performs very badly on education and health. It performs very badly on education and health because the women there, the very high rates of infant mortality, maternal mortality, and of malnutrition. And that is all because of Khap panchayats. And therefore, the men have ruined Mewat. And unless and until men like us don't consciously push for women parity, it will be very difficult for India to grow. And if we are able to reach 48%, you will be able to provide $700 billion of India's growth simply because of women pushing for jobs. And therefore, first and foremost, it's a responsibility upon all of us to ensure that there's a huge push for women's education, women's nutrition, women's health, and we are able to provide jobs for them. The number 2 issue which is important to understand is that post-World War II, no country in the world has been able to grow without exporting. Japan was a devastated nation after World War II. It grew. It looked at the world as its market. It captured its Toyotas, its Hondas, its Suzuki. They all looked at the world. They penetrated American market. They penetrated Indian market. They looked at the world. In India, somehow, our medium and small industry, the small remains small, the medium remains small, it never grows. It just doesn't grow. And therefore, whatever we have to do, we have to ensure that our medium and small industries grow big, they grow large, and all Indians must have the ambition and the hunger to penetrate global markets. Without exports, without size, without scale, it's not possible to grow. And therefore, if anybody tells you that you can grow on the back of domestic market, he's talking nonsense. The world is your market, and Indians must penetrate global markets. And without that, it's not possible. So I think the size and scale and exports are very critical, and we must push for them. And we must allow anything which impedes the growth of medium and small industries. We must remove all that, eliminate all that, and ensure that our medium and small industries are provided all assistance and support, because they are the real employment creators of this country to grow in size and scale. The third thing I want to say, that many of our institutions are totally outdated. And it's not possible for India to grow at high rates of 9 to 10% till we do not build new institutions of 21st century. The Medical Council of India is a totally outdated organization. It has ensured that there are not enough doctors. I work in the aspirational districts. It's impossible to get a doctor for 4 lakhs, 5 lakhs. There aren't doctors. It has ensured that there is an imbalance in demand and supply. There are 22 times more engineers than there are doctors in India. And we need to create doctors in India quickly. And therefore, institutions which have impeded India's growth, like the Medical Council of India, need to be radically restructured and re-altered totally. And I would say the same thing for UGC. I would say the same thing for AICTE. We need far more dynamic, vibrant organization. And many of these institutions need to be reshaped for the 21st century. And it's important that our institutions allow India to grow rapidly and faster. So exports, gender parity, size and scale, and institution building. Because in institution, I would say the same thing for bureaucracy. And I would say the same thing for judiciary. You can't have such huge pendency. Because in all these cases, we need to use new layers of technology which have come in. We've seen the emergence of blockchain as a technology for land records, which can bring in, if 70% of your cases which are held up are on account of land, government must use blockchain technology for land records on a transparent basis. Or if we have to push productivity, or if we have to reduce judicial cases, we must use artificial intelligence. Because this will enable us to become very efficient, and India must use technology in all these areas to make a big quantum jump forward. So ladies and gentlemen, there are huge, huge challenges for India. There is a vast number of things which are being done to make things easy, simple, use technology to leapfrog. A vast number of things are being done to make India, to push the startup movement. A vast number of things are being done, but there are also huge challenges. And it would require the efforts of all of us together as a team, as a partnership, for India to grow, progress, and become one of the most dynamic nations of the world. And to my mind, this would require all of us to sincerely work in a manner that will enable India to grow rapidly at high rates over a 3-decade period. So with these few words, ladies and gentlemen, let me conclude. Let me conclude, and I would open it to some question answers, because I have another 10 minutes. Anyone and any question, I'll be very happy to respond to it.
Good evening, sir. I'm Sapan Shah. It was indeed a very informative and a very bright picture that you've given us for the times to come for India, and it's very exciting. I really appreciate the work that this government has been doing since last 4 or 5 years. But one question comes to my mind as a tax-paying citizen of India, which I'm sure others would share with me, that with all this progress in perspective, all is going well for India, but what about corruption, sir? What is your take on corruption? Because it is one thing which is like cancer, and it really is pulling us back all the time. And what this government has been able to achieve so far, because when we voted this government to power 4 years back, we were all expecting that corruption would be wiped out in another 4 or 5 years. But do you really think it has happened? And how do you see corruption as, you know, the sort of a speed breaker in the journey towards the future?
No, so I think a lot of corruption happens when it happens from the top. And I must say that in the last 4 years, last 4 years of this government, and I've worked at very high quarters, I've worked at the highest levels of policy making and decision making. I must say that in government of India, corruption has come to a total standstill at the political level. There's no corruption at the highest levels in government making. I've worked with various governments, but at the highest levels, there is no corruption. You tell me one single case of highest corruption at the political level in this government. And if there is no corruption at that level, and if you're pushing for greater level of digitization, if you're pushing for greater level of elimination of human intervention, and if you are saying that everything must allow you to do online, then over a period of time, you will make India a far less corrupt country. Now, I'm not saying that corruption has got eliminated. It's the blood of, it's over the last 70 years, it's become in the blood of Indians to have corruption. So it's a work in progress. The same tendency will have to be passed on at the state level, at the district level, at the block level. That whole system must permeate down the line. And as and more we get digitized, as and when we push for greater levels of elimination of human intervention, and as we push for a new culture of non-corruption, and as we push for greater level of elimination of human discretion, you will have less and less of corruption. There's no easy course to that. Yeah, please.
Actually has been seen growing, and that is actually causing a lot of disparity between rural and urban, and that's the divide, which how we can take those 50% where this agriculture can become a remunerative occupation, and that could really, the average GDP of the per capita would go up, because once that goes up, I think India can progress. And value addition, I think something is, which is still not been seen to the mark, which is needed actually for transformation of rural economy. Thank you.
No, I don't know. I mean, in Madhya Pradesh, people would have seen this, but across India in the last 3 to 4 years, what has happened in the agriculture production is that we've seen huge bumper crops. Agriculture production has gone up, productivity has gone up. What may not have happened is that whether that benefit of that increased production and productivity has reached the farmers or not. That's the challenge. And the challenge is because agriculture sector is full of middlemen. It's riddled with middlemen. And unless you don't eliminate middlemen, any amount of MSP that you give, the challenge is that you must eliminate middlemen in agriculture sector, and you must ensure that schemes like ENAM must work. And the process of digitization must enable market prices to be established. If I'm sitting in Tamil Nadu as a farmer and I have a bumper crop, which you've had in Madhya Pradesh, onion, high crops, prices fall. The markets must work, and that will work only if we are able to make digitization work. A Punjab consumer must be able to buy onion from here looking at the digital price. Problem is that we don't have warehousing, we don't have value addition, and what we need to push for is greater warehousing, greater value addition, and back-end facilities, and large-scale production. Production has happened, productivity has happened. You can't say that it's not happened. But you need elimination of middlemen in a very systematic manner. Many of the laws of agriculture, Essential Commodity Act, contract farming, all of them are outdated. So you need to bring structural reforms in agriculture. Those are the challenges, and that would require a huge amount of political will. Huge amount of political will.
Sir,
political and administrative will.
Sir, we have got the branding of IMA to Indigo also, and Indigo is arriving late by 25 minutes.
Okay.
Right, so we have enough time now.
Okay. So IMA also ensures that Indigo comes late.
Yeah, Naveen,
Hi, Mr. Amitabh Kant. I think I would say a lovely presentation, and as the government, I would say I'm really impressed. And I would like to ask one question. It's good to have digitalization. It's good to adopt a lot of new technology, big data, and the IoT. But how do you balance all this technology with the population? I think the way we are handling our policy. So I come from IDEA. So let me give you an example. I work for IDEA. So I would say it's good to have a digitalization where everything is now you go and walk in with the connection. initially it used to take a lot of time. But how about handling that 10,000 people per circle we lost, the basically people who used to go collect forms? So with the population, how are you managing? It's like tradition versus the modernity, the population versus the technology. How do you balance it out? So is the government thinking from that perspective?
No, I'll tell you my own example. You know, I was working in the, about a decade back, I was working in the fisheries sector of Kerala. Kerala is my cadre, and I was working in the fisheries sector of Kerala. And my job was, my job was to enhance returns, much like you talked about agriculture. My job was to enhance returns to traditional fishermen. And there used to be in Kerala 18 middlemen operating between the fish caught at the beach level and by the time it reaches the consumer. 18 middlemen. And the fisherman used to get 23% of his price. The market price, the fisherman was getting only 23%, much like what happens in agriculture. My job was to take his returns higher. So everything that the fisherman was producing, the boat, the nets, the outboard motor, he had borrowed money and was paying 120% interest. So from government, from the society, the organization where I was working, we provided outboard motors, we provided fishing nets, we formed self-help groups, we struggled, we provided new nets, everything we did. Then we ran around to the banks because we said that the catch which he gets, we must be able to put, because they were prone to drinking in the night, fishermen, we said they must put 60% into the bank account and 40% must go towards repayment of these crafts and nets, etc. You know, it took me 10, 11 months of chasing physical bank managers and banks to open their bank accounts. 10 to 11 months of chasing. Know your customer was a nightmare. Last month I walked into a bank, or forget the bank, walking into the bank walked in with a handheld device, opened my bank account in 55 seconds flat. So from 10 months to 55 seconds has been the transformation in India. What are we talking here? All right, let me tell you. And that is why I say this. Why technological leapfrogging is necessary. It took State Bank of India a century to get 500 million customers. Century, 100 years. Look at what a startup like Paytm has done. Look at what they've done. 200 million customers in about close to 14 to 15 months' time. And they will do 500 million customers in 3.5 years' time. So what are the alternatives? Either the State Bank of India digitizes or it goes bust. In a market, the market will recognize only efficiency. Digitization is upon us. Either you embrace it or you go bust. You lose the market. The technology is advancing at such a rapid pace, you and I can't be sleeping. You want Idea to survive, you better catch up with Jio. There's no other alternative. What is the alternative?
So, Mr. Kant, I think the question...
See, the market works on a very simple principle. I'm talking about the market. The government should be a facilitator, the government must be a catalyst, the market works on a simple principle. You compete or you go bust. And for you, Idea is no other alternative.
Absolutely, I think I agree with you, technology is the future. But I think the question was very different and answered very different. So my question was, with the population, how do you manage the technology? So are you building the enough ecosystem for people to get trained so that they adopt the new technology? So are you building...
So I'll tell you. So, no, that's an important question. And one of the things, that's a very important question, if I have no... One of the things, for instance, what we are doing is that, from Niti Aayog, we've opened about 3,000 tinkering labs in schools. And we have, from class 6 onwards, we've provided robots, 3D printers, Internet of Things at school level. So we are saying that we are causing the biggest disruption in our education system. Many of you have not recognized this, but the Anglo-Saxon system of education that you pass class 6, then 7, then 8, then 10, we are saying that class 6, you get used to Internet of Things, you get used to robots, and You will find you have to have different skills for tomorrow. So by 2022, we'll have 30,000 tinkering labs. We are supporting incubation centers. We are throwing out grand challenges for tomorrow. How do you solve problems of India? So what we are saying is that the Western world has always innovated. They've innovated for driverless cars, war machines. We don't need them. So we are saying you find solutions for, how do you find water which is fluoride and arsenic free? Or how do you convert your waste into energy? Or how do you make flyovers in 40 days? Or how do you provide seed and fertilizer to your farmers based on real-time basis on weather and soil condition? These are grand challenges which Niti Aayog has thrown up through Atal Tinkering Labs. We've challenged the people of India to find solutions, the young people of India to find solutions. And if you are able to find solutions for these, then you are finding solution not for the 1.2 billion people of India, but you are finding solution for the 7 billion people of the world who will be moving from poverty to middle class. So these are very fascinating times.
Very impressive.
Let me turn to the lady here because...
Yeah, Mr. Amitabh.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, this side.
Where? Yeah, sure.
You said some of our institutions need reforms. So how is Niti Aayog planning to initiate reforms in the institution called politics and their intentions? Politics and its intentions.
Oh, well,
when oil is at its lowest, a lot of taxes are imposed on oil for us. And a common citizen finds that all these taxes which are imposed on oil for us are used to allocate packages to please voters. So how fair a policymaker of New Bharat finds it?
So that's a very tough question you asked me because Niti Aayog can do everything, but don't ask Niti Aayog to do something which the citizens of India like you have to do. You don't like the politics of India, change the politician. You have the power to change it through your vote. Why are you asking me to do that? You are asking Niti to do something which power as you have. And that is why the middle class of India is the worst class of India. People of Bombay, people of Bangalore. Look at Bangalore, what have they done? They're saying we have potholes, we have this. When the election comes, only 22% of Bangalore votes. Isn't it shameful? And then you are asking Niti Aayog to change? If you want a smart city, you have to have smart people. All of them get on television and say all kinds of things, but when it comes to voting, they don't throw out the politicians who is a criminal. So people of India must throw them out. Don't ask Niti Aayog to change the politics of India. You as citizens, you, all of us have to change it. Yeah. One second. There's a lady asking a question.
Sir, you said that in days to come, in decades to come, urbanization will happen in India. Our country has always been agriculture dependent, economy has been. So that is good for India or that is not so good for India?
Let me say that for the first 6 decades of our independence, we never had an urban scheme. All our schemes were for the rural areas. India did not have an urban scheme. The first scheme which came for urbanization came after 6 decades. There's Jawaharlal Nehru Urban Renewal Mission, now the smart cities, now the Amrit scheme. We had no schemes. We had all schemes for rural areas. And with all money going to rural areas, the people of rural areas kept coming to urban areas. Am I wrong on that? Why do they come to urban areas? They come for jobs because cities are centers of growth. And that is why cities, must understand this, cities occupy only 3% of the Earth's landmass. Only 3% of the Earth's landmass. But they produce 83% of the global GDP. 83% of the global GDP. But cities are also responsible for 76% of the CO2 gas emissions. And therefore, the march towards urbanization is inevitable. Whether you like it or not, people will move to urban areas. Each one of us You must be also coming from some village, moving to Indore. I come from eastern part of UP. My parents moved to Delhi and I've lived in Delhi. All of us have done this. And people will continue to do this. The challenge is, how do we make our cities more livable? How do we do better management of our cities? That is the challenge. So people will come whether we like it or not. You know, and more, as you have, the challenge is, in India especially, on agriculture side, you have a lot of disguised unemployment. One of the major problems of agriculture productivity is huge disguised unemployment. The growth of any country is that you take disguised unemployment from agriculture away, put it in manufacturing, put it in urbanization. And that is inevitable. That is bound to happen. People will move from agricultural areas into urban areas, and we need to do this. Yeah.
Health and education, they are the basic infrastructure which have to be developed. Ayushman Bharat, a very good scheme. But where is our infrastructure in healthcare? And moreover, we have got the shortage of 15 lakh qualified MBBS doctors. This is for the modern medicine, which is playing a big role in healthcare system. So how do you address it? How the delivery of the Ayushman Bharat will be possible in an amicable way?
See, two things. Ayushman Bharat has two components. One is that, if you go to one of the basic problems in India, and we must understand that there are 66 lakh people falling below poverty line because we are not able to provide them good health care at the right price points. And we are not able to provide good health care at the right price points because the government delivery system, the sub-primary health center, the primary health center, the community health center, the district health center has collapsed. I'm the first one in government to say this, that, I own up to it, that it's totally collapsed. And why it has collapsed is that you go to a sub-primary health center, you will find that there is no medicine. The nurse who will be there will say that there's no medicine. So she says that you go to the primary health center. You go to the primary health center, you will find the nurse there, the medicine there, the doctor will not be there. And the primary health center will then refer you to community health center. And when you go to the community health center, the machine will not be working. And then they will say you go to the district health hospital. And when you go to the district hospital, you'll find that the nurse is there, the doctor is there, the X-ray machine will not be working. And I'll tell you this, after districts after districts after districts, this is happening. And then that district hospital will refer you to the neighboring district hospital. So we've put a poor man in a Chakravyuh, where we are not able, to put the sub-primary, the primary, the community health center, and the district hospital system right. And as a consequence of which, the poor person and his child, they are so fed up that then they run to the private doctor. And the private doctor charges at an exorbitant rate, and they just don't have money to pay. This is what has happened. And the government system is not able to provide adequate number of doctors. So what have we done in the backward districts? In the backward districts, which we call as aspirational districts, we don't call them backward districts. We've said that we've given the freedom to the collectors to hire doctors at any rate. So we are paying 3 lakhs, 4 lakhs, through bidding, through social media, bidding, etc., we are hiring doctors. So that, and in the great examples of Datewada, Bijapur, etc., in Chhattisgarh, where young officers have hired doctors, given them transit accommodation, very good accommodation, given them cars, given their wives jobs, given their children but have been able to get about 30, 40 doctors who are working on a missionary mode in these districts. The whole of Bastar region has been transformed like this. But there is a huge shortage of doctors in India. Huge shortage of doctors in India. So the other thing which we are doing is that we are linking up through telemedicine the sub-primary health center to the district hospital, so that digitally you can interact with the doctor and once you are linked up digitally, a lot of this care can be given through using digital technology rather than your physical presence, and a lot of medicine can be available at cost. So we are trying to fix the health and wellness center at the lowest level right. that. And the other thing, of course, we are trying to do is to provide 500 millions with people with health care, the Ayushman Bharat healthcare scheme.
सर एक बड़ा क्वेश्चन ये है कि जुडिशरी सिस्टम अपने बहुत बड़ा स्पीड ब्रेकर है. कहीं भी कोई रोड बनता है तो आधे टाइम तो ये इसलिए नहीं आगे बन पाते कि उसमें किसी ने एक थोड़ी सी याचिका लगा दी और बाद में 1.5 साल तक तो उसका डिसीजन नहीं होता, 2 साल तक नहीं होता. उसके लिए अपन क्या कर रहे हैं?
देखिए ऐसा है कि जुडिशियल सिस्टम में देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ पेंडेंसी, whether we like it or not, and there's huge number of pendency, and my personal view is that we need to get the system right of tracking cases, and this can only happen technologically. Similar kind of cases keep coming, they keep getting blocked, the stay orders which exist for a long time, and therefore without the use of technology it will be very difficult to bring in changes. There's a need to use technology in a very big way in both administration and in judiciary to get rid of our pendency in a huge manner. So ladies and gentlemen, I think with this, with this I will only like to say that these are very, very fascinating times. These are interesting times. There are a lot of things, exciting things happening, but they're also challenging times. And I'll only turn to this 14th century Indian poet. He was a Muslim. He wrote in the Persian language, and his ancestry was Turkish. 14th century India, Muslim, writing in Persian language, ancestry was Turkish. But he counted himself to be the luckiest man alive to have been born in India and to have lived in India. And India at that point of time accounted for almost 40% of the global trade. And that was Amir Khusro, writing of 14th century India. And he said that how exhilarating is the atmosphere of India. There cannot be a better teacher than the way of life of its people. If any foreigner comes by, he'll have to ask for nothing, because they treat him as their own and teach him how to smile like a flower. So much like what Amir Khusro said of 14th century India, these are very exhilarating times for India. And I think this is a unique opportunity for all of us to smile like a flower and transform India by working together in good partnership with the citizens of India. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, sir. I think there's a lot of शोले भरे स्पीच था, शायद कुछ तूफान लेके आएगा बिजनेस कम्युनिटी में सर ऐसा. श्रद्धा ज्ञान देती है और नम्रता मान देती है और योग्यता स्थान देती है. बट जब तीनों मिल जाते हैं तो इससे सम्मान मिलता है, एंड यू डिजर्व इट सर. ऐसा मैं कॉल अपॉन मिस्टर पुरुषोत्तम कुमार, MD AKVN and CEO IDEA to present a memento to our speaker. May I request Mr. Ashwin Palsikar, member IMA, to present a vote of thanks.
While Naveen compared you to, spoke about Mr. Bachchan on screen, but you equally have that kind of energy in lifetime. So a big round of applause for you, sir. Despite your jam-packed schedule for sparing time for us and coming all the way, thank you, Mr. Mandloi, for making this event possible for us. A special word of thanks to EO, Roundtable, and Management Associations of Ujjain and Devas. Thank you, IMA Secretariat, for coordinating and conducting this event so well. A special thank you to Indigo for doing which you otherwise don't, getting late by half an hour. So thank you again, sir. Have a safe flight back to Delhi. And all of you, please join us for dinner. Thank you very much for coming. Bye-bye. Good night.
Thanks.